Hi guys, so now we're gonna talk about Laravel directories. Okay, so as you can see on my screen, we have this default Laravel directories and the left side. So we have the app, bootstrap, config, database, public, sources, routes, storage, tests, vendor. So first, let's go with the app folder. This app folder, it is contained all your codes, your custom codes and everything. You can play this folder. You can create a model, you can create a controller and everything you need to run your application. Okay? So let's click the app folder. The app folder, it is contained as default console, exceptions, HTTP, models, providers. Console. The console folder that contain the artisan command. Okay? So as you can see on my screen, PHP artisan. So what we will see on the screen for this get bash or CLI are artisan command. Okay? So you can create your custom artisan command through creating inside this console folder. Okay? So let's try to create an artisan command so that you can see or just generate a file and a folder. Okay? So let's go and check. So we have this console folder here. So in order to create a console command, let's try to use make command as in a documentation. So let's go and check again. PHP artisan make command. So what is the name of our command? So let's say test command. Test command. So once we hit enter, that should generate a commands folder and test command.php file. So let's hit enter and let's see what is happening. Okay. So as you can see, we have the new commands folder and then the command test command.php file. So these are the codes where you can change and that should be registered to our CLI. So in order to register, you need to add that here. But we can discuss that on my next video or other video. Okay, so that is the use for the console. What about exceptions folder? Exceptions folder is the one who manage or control the error of your application. Like for example, you want to show more detailed error. So you need, all you have to do is just change or manage this. Okay? You just need to add some functionality or handler here that you can control what error you want to see or what error you do not want to see. Okay? So this is just all about exception or errors of your application. Okay, let's proceed on HTTP. HTTP folder contain with controllers, middleware, kernel.php for the file. So controller, what is controllers? Controllers are those files that when you type a URL on your browser, like for example, let's say this is your application, right? So let's run this application first. So let's run this application. Let's create another CLI, PHP artisan serve. So let's go back to the browser and hit enter. we can see now our actual page. How does that happen? First, you are pointing, hitting a route, and then it's hitting a controller, and then going to the views. So we have here, we have the route, and then hit on the controller. So we have, like for example, this one, something like this. Public function index that request request. Okay. So what happened is that, like for example, you hit this, that should fall under this index and then go to the views. That's why you see something visible in the front end side. Okay. So controller will just accept the route and render a view. Okay. So that's how controller works. So let's go to middleware. So let's close this one. Let's close that one. And by the way, I just remember that we have the views should be view. Okay. So let's go back. So middleware, all of these files are filters from the entry point of your application. Like for example, someone is entering a bad data, and then this middleware should filter first. Like they are a security guard, they will stream the string, verify if the CSRF token is valid, something like that. So they are like a security guard of your application that will validate the actual data before entering into your actual application or touching your database. Okay? So let's go to the models. Models. These models files are relatively connected to migrations. They are connected to migrations. They are connected to the table. So whatever is your model, there should be a connected tables here. Users. Okay? And here we can add code for that specific table, queries, and etc. Okay. Let's move on to folders. Providers. Providers contains with service providers. And these are the bootstrap of your applications where you can prepare data for your application, like load data once it's been loaded. So they are just connected to app, or they are just registered to config app.php. All of these providers are registered on app.php. App service provider. As you can see, we have this service provider added here, and then this app.php is connected to our Laravel application. So that's why all of these provider are bootstrap for our application. Okay? So let's say another folder here, bootstrap. So this app.php inside bootstrap, this is the entry point. Okay? So we register the application through this app.php. Note, config app.php and app.php are separate files. Okay, so this is just for configuration, and this is for bootstrapping our application. Okay, these are the cache of our application, and these are the config of our application, the database, the factories. Factories are the dummy data where we can generate all the entries with just commands. Migration, all our table are from this folder. Create password, users, tail jobs, stuff like that. So we can create another new migration. Seeders, we can generate seeders, like create, like for example, this codes here. User factory, we're calling a factory from these factories and then create a dummy data. So these are just the seeders, and we can create a multiple code lines here. Okay, so let's comment out again. You can also create another seeders. So public folder where you store your public data like images, GS, CSS, and more. Index.php is also the entry point where we call the bootstrap autoload vendor, the bootstrap app.php. So when you visit a page, this index.php should be loaded first. Okay? So resources where you can add your CSS as well, your, like for example, if you're using a Vue.js or React.js, then it should be fall under this folder JS file, and it's been compiled. Your language, your, like for example, your English and you have Japanese or Filipino or Chinese, then you can add another file here. It depends on the language. Views, your blade, your PHP file, your HTML, you can store here, and that should be called from controller, as what I have discussed a while ago, that controller is pointing to the view. So this is the view I am talking about. These are the routes. These are the routes, the API routes where you can create your own API for your application, channels, console, and web application, like login, your login page, something like that. Your pages, so you can create inside web.php. Your storage, so like for example, you create, your upload a file, your profile picture, your video, your mp3, your music, and etc. So you can upload here, you can create your custom folder here and then add it inside storage. We have also logs. If we have an error, then Laravel system will automatically create a logs here. They should be renamed through a specific date. Okay, so that you will have the idea what kind of error are you looking for or when it was happening. Okay, framework, we have cache, session, testing, views. So those are cache data, and these are just cache. Okay, so this test folder contain feature and unit. So feature meaning a login or delete or update profile picture, something like that. And then unit testing is just a little piece of code that you are testing with. Vendor, all the folder inside this vendor folder is from other people or other company. So every time you add a new external files or helpers from other people, then it should be stay or stored here. Okay, so that env and composer, these are very important files as well. So as you can see, we have this packages. So these packages are being stored in vendor file. PHP unit settings, server, and composer lock, get ignore, where we know what are not included to be pushed to our get repository. Okay, so I have just shown you one command. So now let's go back to our app folder. So let me show you some command to generate the the hidden folder or the folders that you need most in your application that Laravel did not provide it. So you need to create it through commands. So let's see and check. Okay. So let's open our CLI. So let's clear this out. And let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Let's clean it out again. So now, as we can see, we have just this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folders inside app. But we have actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have missing 10 folders. So we need to generate that right now so that you guys will know what are those. Okay. So first, we have this PHP Artisan make job. So we have this job folder. Okay. Test job. So we will just create a test job and then we will create a job folder. Okay. So this is how we generate the file. As you can see, we have now the jobs created. So the jobs folder contain now with test jobs. This should contain with queuable jobs where it should be processed synchronously, because sometimes when you execute a program, then it's take time to load, then the customer or the client will wait. So we need to use the jobs in order to work it through in the background. Okay? So jobs is very important. So the jobs folder contain with queuable jobs files. Okay? So next, we need to create a channel. PHP Artisan make channel and test channel. So that should also create broadcasting folder. Okay? So channel or broadcasting folder contain with channel files. And what is the purpose of this? This will control your live editing, like live notification, your WebSocket functionality. On Facebook, we have live notification. So that's served with channel. Okay? Live chat. So that is served by a channel. So I think we can use pusher, socket, and many more as Laravel provided. So this is very important as well. So next, we need to create PHP Artisan make event, test event. Okay, so we will create an event. Okay, we have this events folder and then test events. What is events? Events is a way to alert other part of your application that knowing that this part is being touched, then I need to tell the listener that this has been touched. So they are just connected with broadcasting or the channel and the listener. Okay. So now let's create a listener for the event. Okay. Test listener. Okay. It's been generated. Okay. So what is listeners? Listeners will handle the event. Okay. So example, once the event tell that someone registered to our application, then listener will just know and create an email and then send to the customer for the thank you or welcome email. So they will listen to the event and then the listener will send a notification to the customer. Okay. So next, we will create an email. PHP Artisan make email. Test email. Okay, we have an error. So we should make it mail. So mail, what is mail? Of course, obviously, mail is all about email. So we can create a functionality here to send an email to the customer. Okay, so this is also hidden by default in Laravel. So now let's create a notification. PHP Artisan make, let's say, make test notification. So let's create a notification, then the notification created, and then we have this default email, but we can send a lot more options like Slack, messages, or SMS, or email. Okay, so you can just check on the documentation about notification, but this is like the same with email, almost the same with email, but the notification, we are just having a lot more options. Okay, so now let's move on with policy. PHP Artisan make policy, test policy. So let's hit enter and create policy. So what is a policy? A policy is the authorization of the input. So this will validate if the input is valid or not, or if it is against the resources. So it's just like a validation, stuff like that. So this is a policy, and also very important for the automation checking of the validation. Okay, so let's move on with the last part, rule. I just test rules, test rule. So rules. So the rules folder is created, and we have this rules. So what is rules? Rules is part of the input validation or the request validation, but it will just make more cleaner validation and will encapsulate your logic, especially on difficult or more logical validation. Okay, so rules are also very important. So guys, that's all, and I think I covered most of the folders functionality and purpose and commands as well. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, as expected, see you on my next video.